Hi, I'm Russ from Bednar's, and today we're here to talk about deer and the behaviors of deer, and then eventually into how to deer-proof your yard or picking proper plants for your garden that are deer resistant. So the main question that we get here in the garden center is, I have a ton of deer in my yard. What can I put in there that they won't eat? And before we get into those plants, I think the main thing that we have to understand is the different behaviors that they have. So they are creatures of habit. They will come into your yard via different pathways or different avenues, and you want to try to block them of that. They will typically use that same path every time. So if you can put some sticks down or fishing line, for example, to go in between some trees to prevent them to using that same path. That will typically kind of make them go into a different direction and hopefully create a different avenue that they go and keep them out of your yard. Another thing to look at is the different deterrents that you can use. So there's different sprays or different fragrances, soaps is a good thing to look at. With the different types of deterrent sprays, the best thing to do is to use multiple different varieties. So use one for maybe a month or two and then switch it up and you go to a different one. They will actually get used to that same smell over the period of time, and then it won't work anymore. So another thing to look at is the different seasons of the year and when they typically come into your yard and start to eat your plants. So spring is one of the biggest times a year of when they come in, and that's due to coming out of winter and everything is starting to flush. So that meaning there's a bunch of new growth on the plants that they're going to want and come and eat. The doe are actually getting ready to have babies in that time, so they are eating more. And then once the babies are born, then you have another mouth to feed as well. So they are consuming more plant material for their babies. In the fall, we have a completely different story with the buck. So the buck will rub their horns for marking their territory. So when they start rubbing your trees with their horns, you want to put up like tree guards, or you can actually wrap a burlap around your trees and put a couple zip ties around them or tie it with string. That is the biggest thing that you can do to prevent the buck from actually coming and rubbing your new trees. They are very curious animals, so anything new that you put in your yard, they're going to come and check out. So another thing to keep in mind is, even though you have a deer resistant plant in your yard, they are curious. Like I mentioned, they may come and take one bite and they may decide that they don't like it and move on. But if you have 5 or 6 or 8 deer that come into your yard and they all have that same habit, and they come and you have 8 testing one of your plants that is deer resistant, you may not have much of a plant left. So there is no real foolproof deer resistant plant if the deer are curious and they want to try it. So just keep that in mind. It's not a foolproof way of saying, hey, every plant in my yard is going to be completely deer proof. They still may come through and take a bite just to see if they like it or they don't. So I think that's some good information to try to understand how the deer operates before you actually get into start selecting your plants for your landscape. Whenever you're ready to do your plant selections, keep in mind the 3 F's: fuzzy, fragrant, and fine. So fuzzy is also known as pubescence, which is tiny little hairs on the leaf. Fragrance is anything that has a strong smell. And then the fine is actually a texture. So for example, like grasses or artemisia, anything that has some really small leaves is typically something that the deer do not like. So be sure to check out our other videos where we actually get into the details of the different categories. So your annuals, your perennials, and your trees and shrubs.